everyone. I'd like to call the December 16, 2024 meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Education to order at 7:06 according to my cell phone PM. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on the district website. I will call the roll. Vice Chair Stephen Lawrence.
Present.
Secretary Sarah Beth Vilpreet.
Present.
Dr. Jay Daya will be a little late this evening. Lauren Francesi.
Here.
Jeff Hughes.
Here.
Mike Strambler.
Here.
Aaron Williamson.
Here.
And I'm the chair, Lynn Piazek. Staff in attendance this evening: Ms. Vonda Tenza, Superintendent; Ms. Donna Coonan, Director of Business and Operations; Ms. Carrie Borcherding, Director of Special Services; Ms. Annalisa Sherman, Principal; Ms. Cheryl Toffel, Assistant Principal; Ms. Marcia DeGennaro, Clerk of the Board. Please stand to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is correspondence. Sarah Beth, is there any correspondence this evening?
There is some correspondence. It is all in board book for anyone to take a look at.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. I believe we have some public comment this evening, so I will read the statement. The board welcomes public participation and is appreciative of the feedback we receive from the community, whether it is through letters or public comment at meetings. If you are making a public comment at tonight's meeting, please be aware that the board will not respond to any comments made during public comment period, except to clarify issues. We will take into consideration your comments, and when appropriate, district administration will follow up with you at a later point in time. We ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. As in the past, Mr. Hughes serves as our timekeeper, and so I will ask that when the allotted 3 minutes is indicated, that speakers respectfully conclude their statements. So I have 4 individuals who have signed up for public comment this evening. The first is Tahira Parvez. Sorry, Tahira.
Good evening, Tahira Parvez. Did you want me to state my address?
That'd be fine,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. 928 Baldwin Road in Woodbridge. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak. I am a longtime Beecher parent, and I want to start by expressing my gratitude for this board. I've spent many wonderful Monday evenings watching you all meet, sometimes Tuesday mornings. And overall, but especially this year, I really appreciate the thoughtful conversations and tolerant discussions that have become a hallmark of this board. And I know all of you give of your time and talent very generously, so thank you for your service. Tonight I am here to advocate for the inclusion of Eid, Diwali, and Lunar New Year in the 2025-26 Beecher Road School calendar. As it was mentioned at the last meeting, and I wholeheartedly agree that our calendar should be reflective of the community, of the Woodbridge community, that reflects the backgrounds and traditions of the families that we have here. As you are likely aware, Woodbridge demographics have changed dramatically over the 10 plus years. Based on information from Data Haven's Woodbridge 2023 community profile, of the nearly 9,100 Woodbridge residents, 27% are people of color. This share is 3 times the 9% that was reported back in 2010. And among people of color in Woodbridge, nearly half, 49%, are East Asian or South Asian. And for this significant population, Eid, Diwali, and Lunar New Year holidays are central to their cultures and traditions. As daughter of immigrant Muslim parents in a school district that did not recognize Eid, I faced the difficult choice between celebrating an important religious holiday and attending school. The imperfect solution to that was to cobble together a day that began with morning prayer and ended up going to school in the afternoon, which left me feeling torn between 2 important values, neither which received my full attention. After hearing public comments from the students at Amity earlier this month, it became clear that these feelings still exist with students currently. I think this is a moment where we can send a powerful and positive message to the members of our community that diverse religions, backgrounds, and traditions are a valued part of Beecher's identity. And a vote to include Eid, Diwali, and Lunar New Year in the calendar would be a true reflection of Beecher's core mission to be a caring, creative community
3 minutes.
that models and inspires the joy of lifelong learning, embraces diversity, and celebrates the unique qualities of each person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the list is Shruti Desai. I'm sorry.
Can be hard to pronounce.
It's like Piasek.
It's fine. Hello, board members. Thank you for this opportunity for me to speak here in front of you. I thank you for your service. And Tahira summarized the statistics very well. We are a very diverse community, and we love being in this community. My children love going to Beecher. I have one in Beecher and one in Amity Middle School, and I'm here to advocate and support to recognize Diwali, Eid, and the Lunar New Year as on holiday in the school calendar, which would give an opportunity for kids and the community members to recognize diverse holidays, celebrations, and festivals. And just an example that this year, Diwali was on Halloween, and I was really, I wanted to celebrate Diwali along with Halloween, but it was hard because the kids were in school in the morning, I was at work, and then coming back home, it was dark, time to celebrate Halloween. That takes priority for all of us, and they all had fun, but it would be so wonderful to celebrate 2 festivals, 2 celebrations at the same day. And growing up in India, I think we had school holidays for Diwali, Eid, and and Christmas. So and growing up, I've seen this, that it just develops inclusiveness in children who are exposed to this kind of diverse, culture at school and in the community. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Mohini, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm not a Beecher parent. I'm an ex-Beecher parent, and I was going to accompany my son here today, but he, of course, in the spirit of things, has an upper respiratory infection. So I'm going to read this brief message from him. Hello, I am Ayush Menon, 7th grade at Amity Middle School, Bethany. I joined Beecher in kindergarten and graduated in 2024. I remember in kindergarten, first and second grade, my mom and I shared the story of Diwali and how we celebrated it in my family with my class and friends. Some of your kids may have been there in those sessions. I really liked sharing, and my friends got to know a little about my culture too. I hope you add Diwali as a holiday so that kids like me can get to celebrate this major holiday at home with their families. So I am speaking now, I'm back to Mohini, not Ayush, as a community member, an ex-Beecher parent, and an ex-member of the Beecher DEI Community and Diversity Committee. And you'll hear from some of us today. Maybe we'll speak more about Diwali or Eid today. Next time it'll be more about Eid or Lunar New Year and so on and so forth. But it's not a reflection of which holiday is more important or which holiday should be considered. I think it's a reflection of who can make it to the meeting today. And what we really want to advocate is to recognize these holidays that represent now a broad swath of children in the school. The absence of these holidays leads to some degree of cultural invisibility, as Tehera mentioned, and it's really wonderful if we can offer an opportunity to erase that. This is in line with Beecher's principles, Beecher's culture, as our Community and Diversity Committee has often discussed. And logistics will always be a challenge. I think, I trust all of you can come up with really creative solutions. And I'm hoping that you'll take this opportunity to really treat this as an opportunity rather than as a challenge that has to be overcome, and actually to lead the way within the Boa district to make this change for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohini. Next is Atul Kulkarni.
Yeah, got it right. Yeah. Hi everyone, thanks for the opportunity. Atul Kulkarni, I live just 2 minutes walking from here, to Old Mill, right across the high school. I don't have any prepared remarks, so I'll be all over the place. But so I will echo everything that the three speakers before me said. Personally, I have been celebrating and my family Diwali for like 40 plus years that I'm alive so far. It's a pretty big festival, holds a lot of cultural and religious importance. And from the personal experiences, I can tell you it's kind of not fun when you have like about 1.2 billion people all over the world celebrating, and at the same time, you're receiving people bursting firecrackers and lighting lights and all that kind of stuff, and you're busy trying to fix lunch boxes for your kids at the same time. We would love to, be able to celebrate such an important festival and not have to sort of rush about the day while rest of the people in the world who are celebrating and who we enjoy celebrating the festival with. And so I'd really appreciate if there is any way we can carve out a school holiday for celebrating these festivals. I am aware that Shruti, who spoke second, I think she emailed you a prepared letter, so hopefully you got a chance to take a look at it. And I believe there are more than 200 signatures which we were able to sort of get in touch with people and who are signing in their names to support that. So there's quite a bit of support, I believe, in the community for these holidays also. And just appeal to you all to somehow figure out a way so that we can celebrate this festival with you all, maybe, and have fun. Thank you.
Thank you. So those are the 4 names I have on my list. Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment this evening? Sure, come on up. And you can be next.
Dear Beecher BOE.
Could you give your name?
Sorry.
And
My name is Linda Chen. Do you need my address?
sure, that'd be great.
36 Old Barnabas Road, Woodbridge. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone for allocating the time for giving us the opportunity to speak about this issue. I speak today in great support of this inclusion and what it has what it has to offer future generations of students at Beecher. My name is Linda Chen, and I'm a current high school junior, but I'm also an alumni from Beecher Road School. So recently, I was an intern for the Asian Pacific American Coalition of Connecticut, and also as a co-founder of API Youth Advocates, who we recently helped pass the town's proclamation for the recognition of Lunar New Year. I want to talk a little bit on my personal experience living in Woodbridge and also going through the Beecher Road School educational system. Growing up as Asian American, I know exactly what it feels like to feel empty. I was always, of course, myself, but every time I returned to my community or FaceTimed my grandparents overseas, there was always something missing. I didn't find it hard to assimilate with my white peers, but maybe that was the problem. Common immigrant stories almost always talk about the struggles of integrating in a predominantly white society. But what's often overlooked is integrating with your own ethnic community and family. For many Asian American children, this is a cultural disconnect between ourselves and our elders, our family, and our community, losing our own identity in the process. One cause of this inability is oftentimes connected to schools, since these are the places that we spend the most time in. Whenever it was Lunar New Year, I remember being unable to celebrate with my family and friends because I always had schoolwork to fulfill and a school day to attend. Lunar New Year is a full-day celebration with our families. And unfortunately, because we had to go to school, this often meant that we had to pass up our tradition, and I lost this cultural aspect. Dehara brought up a great point in the beginning where she talks about how students often have to attend celebrations and also go to school, and this means that they do both half-heartedly. For me and for many other schools, and other students, however, we are unable to celebrate our cultures because we have to dedicate our full attention to our academics. This is mainly because what I've noticed in the Asian community, at least the East Asian community, is that many parents do not allow their students to skip school since education is so heavily emphasized in our culture. And if they did skip school, this would mean that students would have to make up a lot of work. And overall, this is extremely frightening, to be completely disconnected from your culture. Overall, school is a place where we grow not just academically, but individually as a person. Schools are not a place just for grades or things like that, but I also believe that schools are, especially for younger students, is an opportunity for students to grow socially. I think this is seen through like recess, gym, health class, and all these things. A lot of times, younger students need to build their time socially and connect with other students. And in order to connect and build relationships with others, you also need to have a strong foundation of yourself and your own identity. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, hi. My name is Rita Sharma. I'm at 11 Davis Road. I am a parent to Arjun, who is a second grade student at Beecher Road School. I grew up in Hampton, Connecticut through the public school system and did not have any days off for Diwali. And since I've become a parent, I've been trying to pass the culture on to my kids, attending their schools during Diwali and talking about the holiday with his friends in class, and finding it remarkable how many students say, oh, lights are part of my culture, whether it's Persian, Christian, and there's just so much commonality that can be brought out from sharing what our traditions are, especially in today's day and age. As a celebration of Diwali, when he comes home, we do several things. We go to the temple, we pray. What else do we do?
We have sparklers.
Yep. Dinner. We wear new clothes, and we just hope for light and prosperity for everyone in the world. And so that is something it would be great to have a day dedicated for going forward. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, both. Anyone else for public comment this evening? On behalf of the board, I want to thank those who came out this evening to express their thoughts on our school calendar. So thank you very much. Number 3 on the agenda is the consent agenda. The minutes from the November 18th regular meeting are included in this evening's consent agenda, along with budget narrative, budget summary, detailed financial report, and combining financial statements. Also included are the following policies for 30-day review. So bear with me because there are many. Policy 9322, public and executive sessions. Policy 9323, construction of agenda. Policy 9324, advanced delivery of meeting materials. Policy 9325, meeting conduct. Policy 9325.2, order of business agenda. Policy 9325.21, order of business. Policy 9325.3, parliamentary procedures. Policy 9325.4, vote recording. Policy 9325.43, attendance at meetings via electronic communication. Policy 9327, electronic mail communication. Policy 9330, board/school district records. Policy 9340, school board membership. Policy 9360, legislative program. Policy 9400, monitoring products and processes. Policy 9420, recognition of accomplishments by citizens, students, staff members, or members of the board. And lastly, policy 5131.81, electronic devices. Does anyone on the board wish to extract anything from tonight's consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, may I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Stephen? Do I have a second? Jeff? Motion to accept the consent agenda made by Stephen Lawrence, seconded by Jeff Hughes. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So I will turn it over to Ms. Kensa.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to keep most of my comments brief because I think we have a few topics of discussion that, we have a lot to talk about with our budget and the calendar. So just educationally, I did mention to our first selectman recently that we have had, an uptick of the community trying to enjoy our grounds during the school day. It is of a safety concern to us. So the first selectman was generous and said that he would offer a reminder, and we are going to look into some increased signage. Our school day really starts around 7:30 in the morning, and because of our extended day program, runs until 6 p.m. So community members that really do love to walk their dogs, ride their bikes, let their dogs run around unleashed, it does pose a safety hazard. So I did just want to bring that to everybody's attention, that if you see those reminders, it's just to keep our children and staff safe during the school day. Despite all of the construction that's starting to wind down for the winter season, we anticipate that most of it will be done. It is looking like a wet week. They may need to hold off on the back south end of some of our work until the spring, but I want to give a shout out to our staff. They have been amazingly flexible with rearranging their schedules for recess, perhaps rearranging their walking paths, changing what door they may need to exit to get somewhere, and they just carry on with teaching and learning, and it really is greatly appreciated. Also, our staff were very successful in their first efforts to distribute our report cards online. So parents accessed pretty smoothly our report cards for their children online with very few bumps. Few people needed to kind of solidify their login, but we're really excited about that. It saves printing costs, and it is also a green effort to save paper. It's also immediate, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to our staff for that. I'm going to hold off on the budget comments for just a moment. Like I said, our facility work is continuing. They hope to wrap it up for the winter when the plants close for the winter. Our space planning committee has also been meeting regularly, and Dr. Madonic leads that and provides us updates as we go. We do have for the committee to review our ed specs and space utilization matrix. So we're reviewing that and discussing it later this week. And Antonazzi and Associates is tentatively looking at some dates in January for community workshops. You might tentatively mark your calendar for Wednesday, January 15th and Monday, February 3rd. We'll have some building tours around 5:30 and then an hour and a half meeting that would start at 6:30, starting to talk about those options. Followed up with some additional dates. But just to be proactive, we might be looking at January 15th and February 3rd for the first level of that work. And I think at this point, I'd like to just make a few comments on the calendar, and then I will hold off on my budget comments until we get closer to the budget discussion.
Can I hold off on your comments about the calendar until we get to that?
I sure can.
On the agenda?
Yep, I
Yeah.
can.
Then
So
it'll
at this point,
it'll
yep.
be fresh in everyone's mind.
That's perfect. At this point, I wanted to give Carrie Borcherding an opportunity to provide us with a brief special education update, just a verbal update to cover some information that we thought might be of interest and helpful with the budget discussion.
Perfect.
Thank you, Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, I feel like I'm in the hot seat. Thank you. I know that you had time to look at all the budget information, and we did really have quite a different start to the school year. As you know, we asked for additional paraeducator support, so I just wanted to give you some updates on what our percentage is right now and kind of what the projections are looking like for this year. So we ended the school year in June at about 14% as our special ed population. The state average last year ended at 17.3%. So we are below the state. We are very similar to the other districts in our area, in the BOA region in particular, that are coming in around between 11.5% and 14%. So we are in that range. That said, about 2 to 3% every year will graduate off to 7th grade. So we started this fall, our anticipated start for this fall would have been around 12%, but with enrollment over the summer, we actually started around 13.9% at the start of the school year with just students who moved in. There were that many students that moved in over summer who came to us with IEPs. Both from surrounding areas and some from other countries. The other thing that has been a big change for us this year is we've seen a big increase in the level of need that students have. A lot more students are accessing not just special education services, but related services. So we've had an increase in OT and PT hours. We've brought on an additional OT for this year for 1 additional day worth of time. And so, you know, that does have some budgetary impact. I would anticipate by the end of this school year, we're going to be in the above 15% range, just based on the number of evaluations. Usually fluctuate about 2 to 3%. Our anticipation ending the year would have been that we were kind of in the same spot that we were. But because of the large number of students who moved in, it does look a little bit different. The other thing that impacts us, I believe, from that end of it is that overall there is just an increase across the state and the nation. There are significantly more students coming in with mental health challenges and the need for those wraparound type services. School refusal is starting to become an issue in a lot of more surrounding areas. We've been quite lucky that we don't have a lot of that at elementary level, but it's not to say that we don't have any. And, you know, we've had a social worker that was in a grant for the last couple years, and given, I believe Ms. Superintendent Tenza showed you on the slides from the last presentation that if you look at the number of students in the building served, just from the social work, like social work and psychologist groups and things, the mental health, social emotional support, 61 students currently receive direct service or related service through their IEP. And then there are 58 students in general education. These are who are currently receiving either an intervention or 504 accommodations of either counseling support or other short-term interventions. So that may look like class SEL lessons and additional class groups are on top of that number of students. So it could be small group counseling, it could be individual counseling, it might be a couple week intervention while a student is maybe in between outside providers. It could be some crisis that's happening at home that we're jumping in to help. And then there are also the day-to-day things that happen within the building where we need the extra staff to support any activities that happen within a classroom where a student might need some support around de-escalation. So that number to me was very telling, that I actually was surprised that it was that many when I really went and gathered the information from all the providers of how many students now are accessing mental health support more than in the past. This is the same as other districts. We're very lucky that we are fully staffed. We did hire that last half-time psychologist, which is fantastic. That will definitely help with evaluations because that number is increasing. Our evals last year, we projected about 80 and we ended up having 70 referrals. I'm projecting about the same number this year. I believe right now, referral-wise, I think we're already at 37 at this point in the year. Out of our 70 referrals last year, 30 of them did not result in an evaluation. So we went to testing on 40, and of those 40 evaluations, 57.5% of them became eligible for services. So that number in itself, the percentage that we obtained from September to June is about what you would see an increase of, that 2% of the population. That would be students moving in, somebody who had been in an intervention, and we finally decided it was time to look at if there really was a disability, or it could also be kids coming in from kindergarten or coming into first grade where we wouldn't necessarily test when they're much, much younger. So I think that's kind of the updates I have. So the level of need, the biggest thing I can tell you is that the level of need increase is vastly different than what we even planned for last fall for this year. Since you plan so far in advance, you can't know who's going to move in. And we're doing it and we're making it work, and everyone's getting the service that they need and from all of the providers, but I don't see it decreasing. In fact, if it trends the way it did, maybe this year was an anomaly. We will definitely need more than, but this is kind of where we are right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Quick question. What's school refusal?
What is school refusal?
Yeah.
So when students are having a hard time coming to school in the morning, or usually it's around, there's some other mental health or anxiety or depression or something else happening outside of the school that's prohibiting getting to school every day, or truancy. There used to be a lot more supports and laws around truancy that are not available now, which leaves a lot of districts trying to figure it out on their own. Not that all the supports were always available or helpful, but they're at the upper grade levels, you definitely see a lot more of it than there used to be. There are whole groups that focus just solely on truancy and that school refusal type behaviors. But it's that consistently absent from school, and then once you've been absent that long, it's hard to make it up. So it just becomes that pattern of how do we end that and find the things to connect you within the building. I feel really fortunate that we have the number of mental health providers that help to keep, I think, our numbers down for that, because they can do a lot more close contact, small groups, things in the check-ins in the morning that maybe other schools can't do. So that would be something that, to me, is really important that we hold on to.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Carrie, thank you so
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay. Next is adopt 25-26 calendar. So you had some
I just had
comments you were gonna
some
make,
brief comments that I wanted to share as well. You know, I know that we really do appreciate everybody who came to speak tonight. It's important to have everyone's voice heard. The board had asked that perhaps we could survey the community, so we did also put out a survey. We did discuss this topic. We began discussing this topic at the November board meeting. And just a few pieces of information. So we did ask a couple of questions. The information, in my opinion, was fairly split regarding a full week February vacation or reverting back to the 2 days. It was slightly tipped towards reverting back to the 2 days at 54%, favoring 2 days. 46% of the 250 responses favored a full week. The second question really centered around, would you be in support of adding additional holidays? And again, fairly split, although again, 55% did not support the addition of new holidays, 44% were in favor of adding additional days. You know, our community is so kind. So many of the comments were things like, I don't necessarily have a holiday to suggest, but if there's a holiday that our community is interested in, I might entertain that. So very kind community. When you looked at the responses, you know, a minority of people responded to that drop in. 250 people responded to the 2 mandatory questions. It was open-ended as to whether or not you wanted to suggest optional holidays. We did have some creative ones, like the day after Halloween. I personally, as a parent, appreciated that one. I suspect somebody that's a staff member snuck in Teacher Appreciation Day, so, you know, A+ for those efforts. So, but of the people suggesting possible holidays, actually the top one was Veterans Day. You know, almost 20 people wanted Veterans Day off, and then Eid al-Fitr, Diwali were both coming in at 16 and 15, and after that it really kind of dropped to 2 and 3 suggesting various holidays. So I do anticipate that our board is going to have a nice, robust discussion, and I know that it's going to really focus on what is best. I will share that Amity tried to have this conversation, and they did have a lot of discussion and tabled it. Bethany, also last week, their board had this discussion and tabled it. So Orange and Woodbridge are discussing it tonight, you know, and as one of our parents said, it is a time to act. So what you will see is that I continue to put forward a traditional calendar that mirrors this year. And the reason I did that is not that I do not respect a variety of the holidays that were suggested. In fact, just because there were more, you know, people suggesting one holiday in no way lessens the value of another holiday. But this is not I'm not going to recommend a calendar, because this is one of the few decisions that the board gets to do. This is a Board of Education responsibility. You are the ones that get to establish our calendar. We do it, you know, a year in advance so that our families can plan. We do, just as a reminder, try to line up with Amity and Bethany especially, the whole BOA region, but we do share busing with Amity and Bethany. So every time that we don't line up, and we have lined up over the past several years, but every time that we don't line up, it's about $3,800 a day that we would have to pay outside of a like basically a 3-day window. We have a 3 days worth of almost like a buy where we don't have to match. And I just remind you that some of the things that our families like are that when we do align, so that, you know, our older siblings can take care of our younger children. I also just remind you that schools focus on learning, and if we're in school, we're learning, and if we're not in school, we're with our families. Every time is important, but I can assure you that we are one of the districts that are in school on Veterans Day. We are learning about Veterans Day. We have assemblies, we learn, and we do learn about a lot of holidays, whether we are, you know, practicing them with a day off or not. So I don't necessarily think that you need to table the discussion. I think you might be able to have a robust discussion and come to a decision tonight. But I did just want to, bring it to your attention that 2 of the other districts did in fact do that. So,
Thank you for that information. That's helpful. So we could do this 2 ways. We could make the motion and then have the discussion, or we could have some discussion about it and then have a motion. So anyone have a preference as to how we roll with this?
I'm happy to make a motion to, to
Open a
this-
discussion.
To open this up to discussion.
Great.
All right. So my motion would be to move that the Woodbridge School District calendar returns to a 2-day holiday for winter break and recognizes 1-day holidays for Diwali, Eid al-Fitr, and Lunar New Year.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion? Okay, so the motion is made by Stephen, seconded by Lauren. Now we'll have discussion on that motion.
So I would want to know what Amity School District is doing before I made any decisions, because it's very hard for me to even contemplate. Like if Amity says, yeah, let's go back to 2 days on February and do these 3, then to me that makes our decision in somewhat easier, right? If they say we're going to stick with the February break, and then if you guys go and add these 3 holidays, you're taking on that decision. I just think I don't see why we would engage in the robust discussion before having all the information. And since they've punted, I feel like we should punt until we have all the information. Not that I'm not supportive of it, but I want all the information before I vote on anything.
I have a question. So if we make a day, if we recognize a holiday, now what happens when it falls on a weekend? Is that still like a paid teacher holiday that we now have to recognize on another day? Because isn't that how most holidays work?
It's like Rosh Hashanah
No?
and Yom Kippur.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's the same number of days. You haven't adjusted the staff work days or the student days, because you swapped out the 3 days.
And it doesn't affect the teacher calendar at all. And
Well, because every year you have to adjust based on if it falls on a weekend or not? Okay.
Yeah, so there might be years where you wouldn't have it as a day off and you adjust.
we have that currently for one of our Jewish holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens with the Jewish holidays. I think it's interesting. It's kind of like, do you wait for Amity? And it kind of seems like Amity has put off the decision. And
They are waiting for us.
There's a waiting game, and I think at some
We're
point.
just all punting back and forth.
Right.
At some point.
Okay,
I think
that's helpful information.
Keep punting
at some
until
point,
That's helpful.
September
folks
comes.
need to, to look at this and say, we have,
Got it.
community members who have observations and celebrations on these days, and that matters. So I think it's really important. I do want to speak to the Veterans Day piece, because I saw that in the numbers, and I think that that's an important consideration. And I would just point out that the state legislature did codify the teaching about veterans in state law. It is embedded in the new state social studies standards. So having school on Veterans Day, not that that would be the only day you would teach about veterans, it's a wonderful opportunity to actually do those components of civics education. So while it's a tough one because it is such an important day, it does offer the opportunity to celebrate veterans in our schools with our kids and make it a really exciting learning experience, which I know Beecher does and always tries to grow that program on that day, which I think is really meaningful for the kids. They always enjoy everything that happens on that day. So I think those were the 3 days that come out of February get reallocated to holidays, and that's probably 3 days that if it doesn't overlap, we wouldn't have to pay, right? If we don't move more than 3 days, we're probably not in a window where we would be incurring a financial issue with buses. I have that.
I agree.
So in light of the, like, we're just punting back and forth information, which is helpful, have we hypothetically had a behind the scenes conversation with their superintendent to say, if memory serves me correctly, the February holiday was added because they needed more days in June. So would the kind of agreed upon change be this: we move February back to 2 days and disperse those 3 days to cover these other holidays? Like, is
I
that
can't speak for their board, and neither can the superintendent.
right?
But I would
anybody listen to that
suggest
board
that if it's not adding, if you take away 3 in February and add them somewhere else, the last day of school would remain the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Did any other board members listen to their board meeting, and was that what was offered as the suggestion?
There was some discussion, I believe, about number of days for senior internship. So
That was, yeah.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, it was the senior
those
internship.
additional days, and you know.
So reallocating would still allow them what they need, because we would just be, because it's still, like you said, ending on the same day.
Yes, the reallocating
Would do that. Okay.
Well, that is if it wasn't on a weekend.
Right,
Fuck.
right.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Because it happens.
So the move to the February full week was because of a need for days at the end of the year. It didn't have to do with the need for those February days for, okay.
So essentially, you still are pushed out those 3 days into June if you keep if you have the 3 holidays.
That's correct.
Because those
Okay.
3 days, it's just
Then
3
that
days
makes
off in different places.
Okay, all right. I'm remembering that incorrectly then, because I thought there was something about February where you needed to have those days.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
but
I
it's
missed
really about the
that.
end of the year, so I was confused about how this fixes the February thing, but it's really the end of the year. Okay, all right.
Yeah, because with the high school schedule, typically the senior internships can't really start until AP testing is over. I can look up
For most
the-
children, correct. Yep.
Right, and so, but a lot of it's driven by when some of those like final senior assessments are wrapping up, and then students go out on internships. So I think there was some consideration for like not having school end super early in June, because you don't give the seniors don't get that opportunity to have, 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it might be to have that experience. That was my understanding.
That was the
of it,
rationale.
which is important.
I mean, sorry, I don't want to monopolize.
So I would just say, I mean, the reason I proposed this motion, and I have to say, this has been an evolution in my own thinking around this, where at first I was like, months ago I thought kind of, the reality is there are Christian holidays recognized by our calendar. And they've been there as long as there's been Woodbridge, I'm sure. And then the demographics of the town changed. And there were more Jewish residents of Woodbridge, and we adopted 2 holidays to recognize important traditions. We're not recognizing every Christian holiday. We're not recognizing every Jewish holiday, because I think there's a concern, is this opening the floodgates? No. What it is doing is recognizing that we've undergone a dramatic demographic change in the last 10 years. That change is continuing and has been to the benefit of our community. And this is really an opportunity to recognize what is important to members of those communities in our school calendars. And I couldn't agree more about the importance of signaling. Certainly I as a kid learned more about Jewish traditions because we recognized Jewish holidays when I was growing up. And I just think this is and these holidays, what they represent are some really wonderful things. And ultimately about family and community and light. And goodness conquering evil, like these are really, wonderful things to recognize, and sort of sacrifice and reflection. I think the opportunity for us in Woodbridge to really take the lead and say, we think this is important. So other districts, we hope you come along, but we simply are saying, this has value. It has value to our community. It's both important to our community members and sends a signal to the larger community and ultimately benefits all of us.
I hear your point about opening, that you don't think it's opening the floodgates, but I do have some concerns that there are going to be other holidays that are than Three Kings Day is one that we've talked about. I celebrate Three Kings Day. Maybe I want that one added now. So that, I feel like we would have some more digging to do maybe on what other holidays might start to come up in our community that people start to feel, well, I'm not included now. Because once you add them, you can't take them away, right? So.
Right. And I would say, I think there may, that may be the case. Like if the Latino component of our community continues to grow or there's a strong movement, Three Kings may be something we want to consider. But I do feel like we've had community members express their strong support. So this is why, and I absolutely respect what you're saying, and and I think we'll need to consider that. We would need to consider that when the time came. And I don't think that precludes us from recognizing these holidays now. I was just struck by, kind of in my little research, 30% of the world's population recognizes Lunar New Year, celebrates Lunar New Year. It's like, I had no idea. And it, crosses, I was associated it with China, and it's like crosses multiple countries, multiple cultures. So it has that broader value. Yeah, so, I hear your point.
It also seems like we added 3 days to extend the calendar. Now we have 3 days where we actually have a purpose for adding them to the calendar. Let's just take those 3 days we added literally just to extend the calendar and reallocate them to celebrate these holidays. This seems like there's no downside. It's just being more inclusive. Otherwise we're keeping 3 rando days in February, and I think from what we're even seeing in the surveys back, people want to go back to the 2 days in February. So let's go back to the 2 days in February, reallocate those 3 days. This is like a win-win in my mind. This seems like there's very little downside to approving this, and especially if we're just punting back and forth. I thought there was he was actually going to go do something. So I'm not saying they're doing anything. Right. But if we're all just waiting for the other one, to decide, and we're all then fine, let's just go make the decision, and I agree, hope that other people fall in line.
So Stephen, I think you're very well spoken and articulate very well on those points, and I couldn't agree more. I'm just concerned that I don't think it has enough momentum in the community and at the state and federal level too. We're talking about adding a non-federal holiday. If you look at the calendar, it could potentially be 5 days. I got to try to figure out childcare in the first 2 months of school. That's a full week of work I might lose in the first 2 months of school. So I think there's more momentum that needs to be had around this. What's going to happen essentially, we vote, the calendar changes, and then most of the parents are going to look at the calendar come August and go, wait a second, what is this? October, I need another day off? So I'd like to see the momentum build in the community a little bit more. I think the word needs to get out a little bit more. I think more community input. That's what I like to see kind of happen. So all good points, but I kind of like to see a little bit more momentum around this.
It's a good point about childcare for parents who might not have flexibility. I don't personally ever think about that because I have that flexibility, but not everybody does. I'd like to see in-school learning days focused around these holidays, because if my kids have the day off, I'm probably not going to do anything with them on those days. So something like where we do veterans in service, would really bring it more to all of the community. And then if those parents want to keep their child home that day, they're not really missing because it's a day of learning about the holiday anyway. I don't know. That puts more things on the teachers, but it's just a thought.
Mike?
Yeah, I was thinking something similar to that. So, Stephen, when you said that you learned about Jewish holidays by having them off in school, it was actually the opposite for me. I would just hear, okay, it's a Jewish holiday. I don't know anything about it. When I was in school, I didn't know anything. I just knew they had off that day. There was no teaching about it in school. school is supposed to be about teaching and learning. And so I would second that if we're, regardless of what we do, I know we've been doing some of this because I remember Lisa talking about, how we've been learning about the various holidays last year. But I've always felt like, for example, we shouldn't have Martin Luther King Day off. Kids should be in school learning about Martin Luther King and the causes he advocated for. So I hear the community though saying that these are events that we celebrate at home. We're giving up something to have to go to school. We're not able to celebrate these holidays in the way that are traditionally celebrated. So there is a loss. There's a loss to them. And there's a trade-off here, I think, that we need to consider. All these things that are being raised about, families needing childcare now, that's a big one. To what degree are we going to integrate learning about these holidays? To what extent are kids actually going to be learning the lessons we would like them to learn about respecting diverse cultures, rituals, celebrations, and so on? Are they better served by having the day off or by being in school learning about it? I don't know. It's not an easy call here. Because there are things on both, there are issues on, both sides of this that need to be considered.
Right. And the question too, just to add, is currently we privilege Judeo-Christian traditions. While they are not reflective of a growing number of the students in our schools. And what message do we send if we continue to do that and say, we can learn about your traditions in school, but we get to be home celebrating our traditions? There's a question of fairness in that that I think we need to consider.
That was the argument that was put forward in New York. New York passed these holidays, I believe last year. Kathy Ocho passed Diwali, she passed Lunar New Year and Eid al-Mubarak as state, federal educational holidays. And the reason was that we recognize the Christo-Judeo holidays, but we don't recognize these, and our fraction of population has increased in those, and so to give them the benefits. But I do recognize what you said. I think it's very important.
And that's the momentum I like to see. A larger community, everyone's aware it's coming up. Right now, like I said, we're just going to put a dot on the calendar. Everyone's going to be like, what? Come to September, I got to figure this out. So I think that state level momentum is important, and that's the direction I like to see.
I mean, what I will say is, you have to figure out childcare in February, and no one knew that was coming up until we added it to the calendar last year. So you either have to figure out childcare for those 3 days in February, or you have to figure out childcare for these 3 random days. And it's still, I get that there's might be a couple of places that offer week-long childcare that people can take advantage of, but most people aren't. Most people are figuring it out with family members, or they're taking it for a vacation. This seems like, what I will say is, as a Jewish person, there's a smaller Jewish population in this school district, and we get off for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And if you told my community that we had to come to school to teach y'all about our holiday, there would be uproar amongst my community for feeling like, wait, we get off for Christmas, we get off for all of these other holidays, you're not forced to sit there and teach us about your holidays. Why do we have to come to school to teach you all about our holidays? So I just think we have to be really careful when we talk about who should be teaching who, about what and why, that we're not reinforcing a dominant culture while not recognizing the diversity that does exist within our community. And again, we have Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. No one questions those holidays. We are a smaller percentage in this school district than the people who are asking for us to have 3 holidays off.
And I'm sorry, I believe at the last meeting I mentioned that 1/3 of our population was Asian. No, that was 1/3 was non-white, and only 1/6 is Asian. But that's still sizable. 1/6 is of our population.
I think
And
the Jewish
again, I think-
population is 1.5.
It is.
Yes.
Wow. And the Amity reflects that too. And I looked at New York, reflects that too. So our community does have the same fraction that New York has, that we have. And we have a much higher fraction than our neighboring districts. That's the other thing that I did notice. That's something the letters didn't emphasize, but I did look around. And I think to go to your point, Jeff, you said something about planning for days. Well, I asked our kids I take back and forth, the thing they were worried about is extending the summer, taking the extra days out. Lauren is saying this. We have similar age kids.
They want Woodbridge Rec Camp to start. And
That's what they
Yeah,
want.
right.
And so that was one of the, and I never even thought about
No.
this.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that came to me. But the other part of it is I know we have lots of parent days and parent-teacher conferences and etc. And whenever that pops up, I'm like, oh, childcare, we've got to figure that out. So there are things that do come up during the year that we have to figure out with respect to time off and having to work that out. And I think if the calendar comes in advance, which it always does, thanks to the administrations, we should be prepared for it if we do choose to have these as holidays for our school district.
Yeah, the extending the summer thing and childcare issue. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I hear you, Aaron, that people have to figure that out. They had to figure that out now. But you also noted that there was a sizable number of parents who want to go back to the 2 days. Like, I wonder what that's about. Like, is that because they have to find childcare, more childcare for those days?
It's just the question is where those days are, not removing them.
No, we could remove them.
We
and
could,
not add
but that's not the
anything else.
conversation. The conversation is reallocating.
Right, but my point is that I wonder whether those who want to go back to the 2 days want to go back to the 2 days because they're dealing with some challenges around childcare.
Probably.
Oh, I would just add from my personal
Yeah.
perspective, I mean, we agreed to that because we were following Amity's lead and we're trying to be a good fellow district. It's a pain filling a week.
Agreed.
And it's one thing doing it in April, but it's like twice a year, I have to cover a whole week straight. That's a different ball game than I got a day here or there. Like that, I can juggle. The whole week, it's like, now I got to have a plan. So, but not to fully respect your point, where parents need to take off. How do you cover? And if the schools aren't aligned and older siblings aren't available to do this, but honestly, I mean, with my crystal ball, I think this is about dominoes, and whichever domino drops first, it's going to send the other dominoes along. Someone needs to set direction, and I will say, I think our community is unique in a really wonderful way. We've become a place that's attractive to diverse, talented people with great kids who are coming to our schools, who are buying our houses, who are enriching our community in many ways. And this is an opportunity to both recognize that in a way that I think is important and to signal that look at us. We're setting the precedent in terms of being a welcoming community and a community that is willing to evolve, that is prepared to evolve, to recognize the changing demographics of our world. And that's pretty highfalutin. I hope y'all appreciated that.
I like it. It's good.
Just so I'm clear, Amity is not considering. It's pretty much a done deal that we need these the year extended. We need these 5 days. So it's not on the table. The proposal is not on the table to go back to 2 days.
I can't clarify that for Amity or not. That's
I
not
think
what's on
that
the
was-
table for
yeah.
us to discuss.
I think that was last year the way the calendar
Are the
fell.
issues still at play from last year? This year,
They still
are that
love
the
time.
the senior
They still love
issue,
the
the
5
senior
days?
project issue? They still
They
need
still like the extra time.
the extended year.
They like those extra days at the end of the year. It's
So that
just-
means 5 at February?
No, it could be anywhere.
Anywhere, but they need
what
the
it meant
extended
last
year.
year was.
Or we could
Is
get
that still the case
rid of
now?
R3 completely. And they could just, right? We can have 3 floater days. Like if we got rid of R3 completely and just ended our school year early.
You can do whatever you want. That's the truth. You can do whatever you want. It's your calendar. I know you want to align with Amity. Orange just adopted their 25-26 calendar, and I believe they adopted it as presented.
And theirs was no additional days in February, no additional holidays. Is that correct?
I am not sure. I will ask.
Okay.
And so they're finishing 3 days early, is that the way in the summer?
Yeah,
Is that-
I feel like I
that
remember
would be
that.
it?
Yes, they would end school on the 10th with no snow days added, I believe.
And that's the same, I think. on
But
the
again,
high school.
it's, I'll see what,
I would say with the childcare piece, if you're ending on June 10th, and we don't have summer programs starting until, usually it would be, I guess next year would be like the week of
The
June
22nd.
22nd, you're still playing, that's just, the childcare game is real, and, so ending early also, in that sense, gives a week and a half almost of childcare,
What I always,
as well, so.
what I always find is that most parents are okay juggling that one day. When it's that full week, I think, Stephen, what you said is important. Getting that full week is really hard. I think I can wangle with my employer one day here and an afternoon there, but getting that full week is very, very difficult. So maybe that also plays to our advantage in a way if we set the days and they meet these holidays. Then I think it might be easier to work it that way. But I did see
Yeah.
the letter that was submitted, and I think there was, 200 people that had signed up on that letter? That's just...
from 3 communities,
Three
so
communities.
not
Yeah.
just
3
Woodbridge.
towns.
Not just Woodbridge.
Right.
There
Just
are
for
a
the
lot of
clarity of people
Sorry, I
watching.
just
duplicate
missed
names
that.
on there though.
But I
which is
saw
a
the
little
letter.
Well, we didn't say that
Interesting.
originally,
Yeah,
just
no, there are
a lot of
few.
duplicates.
we already have Eid off. Okay. So,
Not the
just for clarification, Orange adopted, it appears, Monday and Tuesday, the 16th and 17th of February, that they will be in school the 18th, 19th, and 20th of February. And they did not add any holidays. And Eid is
I think it happens to be a
already
PD
a
day.
day off.
For them.
But that's,
For this coming years, for the 25-26 calendar,
Right.
Eid is already a day off
for them.
for Orange.
What day is it?
I
Like a
believe it's
teacher's
March
workshop or
20,
something, yeah.
teacher workshop day.
Yeah. But that's
That
that's
might
Orange.
be ours, too.
It would be ours as well. So Eid is already off.
It's on the 19th to the 20th on.
So-
So we already have.
We already have that day off next year.
But if we voted to make that a holiday, then what does that happen with the teacher workshop?
The
Yeah, we would
teachers would
move it.
still come to school.
Just, okay, thank you.
So it would,
That's not part of their contract.
I know, they don't come to school for like Christmas and stuff, so I just wanted to make sure I
And Rosh
understood.
Hashanah.
I don't know all the
It doesn't
details of
need
their
2
contract.
days.
Presuming they don't come to school for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, right?
One of them
Teachers
we do.
don't
One
come
of
to
Because
school
them
on
they-
those days.
we do.
The,
One of
the
them.
Oh, 'cause I was
teachers do
looking at-
not come to school. The teachers work 180.
I saw it as Eid as being in March.
No,
I thought it was-
187.
I thought
It is in March 20th.
Yeah, so we'd be
The
looking at
teacher's
March
contract
and
is-
On the calendar, it's listed,
This is-
the number of
Oh,
days are
thank
right
you.
on the
Yeah.
calendar.
The
Yeah, so
teachers'
it's-
days are
it's Thursday to
187.
Friday
Doesn't
on
matter what
26.
days they are,
It's-
they
so
come to school
Diwali is
187
on October
days.
20th, 2025.
Rosh
Eid el-Tafir is that starts on the 19th, Thursday the 19th of 2026, March, and goes into March 20th, 2026. And then Lunar New Year is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026.
Which is
so
already
those
a day
would
off,
be the
too.
dates.
And that's already a day off.
The 17th? Oh, okay. So Lunar New Year would,
17th is already a day off.
The 17th of February
Next
for
year.
2026.
for
The
next
following
year.
year. It jumps to the
20th is already,
They're all well, no, the
But
20th
this
is
is
our.
just for 1 year.
Correct. It's
I don't think we should just make the decision based on this calendar.
No,
Right,
no.
right.
but what,
I mean, for this year, we already have 2 of those days that kind of just fall there, so it could be like a placeholder to maybe tide us through to next year and not buy some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were waiting for the state to change policy,
I
you
don't
know,
think-
our demographics don't reflect the demographics of the state. You know, I think we're,
And the state.
I guess I would just like to see.
and the state moves really slow.
12
different communities
12
across
other
the-
towns have already. New Haven has some of these holidays, I believe.
Yeah.
Rocky Hill is a list of towns there, I believe.
The momentum's
letters.
building. It's going the right
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah, it
We
is.
looked
It
up
is.
New Haven's. They did it.
And I know the ones down in towards Fairfield have them off as well because of New York now having changed it.
No.
Okay, so, just so that I can, be on the record, I support being in school and learning. I think that we have to be cognizant of future calendars. I know that this particular calendar, there are days where those holidays fall, it won't make a difference, but in terms of continuity and learning for, and instruction for the teaching staff and the learners at Beecher, sometimes September and October are very broken up by a lot of days off. I am a supporter of having the kids be in school and learning. So, I mean, I always said we shouldn't have Columbus Day and Indigenous People Day off, but that the kids should be in school as they are in Veterans Day. I supported that even when we had Veterans Day off, because I think it's as Mike pointed out, a real gift for the kids to be in school and learn. I have been part of the Veterans Day programming that Lisa has implemented in the school, and it is amazing what the kids learn. There's rich learning experiences and teaching experiences. The kids are exposed to so many wonderful things. So I support that. So it's always hard for me to hear that they're going to have more time off and more time off. As an educator, I, as part of our social studies curriculum, taught about the holidays because I thought that that was important in our diverse community. That's certainly something that I would like to see, but that's not what we're voting on this evening. But I did want to express my belief that in-school learning is really important. So, we have a motion on the table. We've had it seconded. For the public who are watching, just for your information, Dr. Daya arrived at 7:56 p.m. He was part of this discussion, so he will be voting on the motion, which, Stephen, I'm going to have you repeat because I think you missed the motion.
All right. So I move that the Woodbridge School District calendar returns to a 2-day holiday for winter break and recognizes 1-day holidays for Diwali, Eid al-Fitr, and Lunar New Year.
And that was seconded by Lauren.
So-
Just to clarify, like, we'd be doing this for this calendar, but for this year, that would adjust the end.
No, I would take rid of February break.
Wasn't that part of your motion?
Right, yeah,
But
so
that
to
would-
return it
that
to
would
a
equate
2-day
to one
holiday.
additional day that would be off, that's not accounted for.
And so the last day of school would be June 12th. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? That's how it,
No,
well, you're taking,
2.
Three.
The 11th. The 11th.
yeah.
Be the 11th, right? I'm not good at this.
Wait, I'm confused now.
So
What are we doing?
Okay, 3 February days that are here, the 18th, 19th, and 20th would be coming out, those would be becoming school days. So you have 3 school days that are, we're putting back in. There's only this year, for this school year, Diwali's the only one that would need to be off because Lunar New Year and Eid are already days off, just for this calendar, for the one we're looking at right now. So there's really, So the end date has to be adjusted to the 11th. So the last day of school would be the 11th.
Actually, I don't think in any year you're gonna have all three.
Yeah, I mean, you
It's
also
gonna be
have Rosh
pretty
Hashanah,
rare.
Yom Kippur, it's
On
gonna
a
be different
Saturday.
every
And there
year.
might be flexibility
Right.
with like
Right.
teacher
Right, right.
workshop days and things like that and the way that they fall in the school year that, you know, it can be, I just wanted to make
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
clear.
and that's the thing, and in a sense, the motion is saying we will recognize these holidays.
Yes.
They may fall on other days, but, you know.
All right, so just because we're adopting only the calendar for, just correct me if I'm wrong here, 25, 26, should our motion be specific to the 25, 26 calendar? Okay, so, do you want to?
I gotta amend my
You want to
motion.
amend your motion?
Okay. I move that for the 2025-2026 Woodbridge School District calendar, we return to a 2-day holiday for winter break and recognize 1-day holidays for Diwali, Eid al-Fitr, and Lunar New Year. Does that do it?
Yeah, which would result in this calendar ending, the
You're
year
right.
ending on
Resulting
June-
in a calendar year ending on
June 11th.
June 11th, 2026.
Okay, that's your motion to?
I second.
Okay, so now we have a new motion. That's,
Take a deep.
and a second. All right. Would it be easier?
Okay.
Do you want to have discussion on the amended motion?
Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to second some of what you said, Lynn, about, you know, what the purpose of schooling is. I agree with the Veterans Day thing. It was actually a good experience for my son when he did it. And I also want to just acknowledge, you know, what Steve and you've been arguing. Like, I'm seeing definitely both sides of this. We want to communicate to our community, well, not just signal to them. I wouldn't use that language per se. I would say we want to make the community as welcoming as possible to all individuals within our community. And if we could make a gesture that will make that community feel more welcome, especially a sizable minority within our community, I see that too, and I appreciate that perspective. Yeah, and Aaron, I hear your point about the Jewish holidays. But the point here is that we're not talking about taking holidays away. So you were arguing that you were saying that if you were taking holidays away, that, you know, the Jewish community would be up in arms, and that's understandable. But like Sarah said, you know, once you have holidays, you just don't take them away. No one would argue to take any of these holidays away once they're in place. And that's why I think we need to be thoughtful about what we put in place, because then they're going to be permanent. They're going to be permanent holidays. So it's a balance, you know. It's a tricky balance to consider both these sides. It's a tough one for me.
Okay.
And Lynn, what I wanted to add is that you mentioned a very good point about learning about these events. We're off on Christmas. My kids spend the week before the holidays start learning about Christmas and the Christian holidays, and so there should be no reason why we can't learn around these days off, leading up to them, so that when we do have the day off, the kids do know why they're getting the day off, because a sizable fraction of their class peers are celebrating on that day. And you know, in many instances, those children, at least at my house, come over to my house on Diwali, and we're unable to celebrate on the actual day. We celebrate at the weekend, typically. And so we've had many kids come over who would ask, why have you got the lights up today? And why have you got the
I'm not sure if that's, so Christmas, I've never, I think kids in school talk about Santa coming, but the true meaning of Christmas, I don't think is actually discussed in school.
I don't, well, in a lot of
I don't think it's
classrooms. In
allowed.
a lot of classrooms, that's true.
But
Okay,
Can,
so.
can I just ask one more clarifying
Yeah,
question? I'm
and
sorry.
then we're gonna take a vote.
The correspondence revolves around Diwali and Ed. Where did Lunar New Year? Is that a suggestion? Is that?
It was actually because they had been pursuing that separately. So it was, all three have been, there's been support for all three being promoted by various members of the community. But because Lunar New Year was sort of on a separate track, the correspondence was focusing on it and Diwali.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had the same question. I was like, how come it wasn't on?
Yeah.
And it was because they were on a separate track,
Okay.
but all working toward the same
Sure.
goal.
All right, for this vote, I'm gonna call the roll. Please, each member can vote. Stephen?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
I'm gonna vote no, but can I?
You can explain why,
I can
yep.
explain. Okay, so I'm gonna vote no for two reasons. One, it does have two of those days fall on days off, so I feel like that I know that's not why they're there, but it's sort of a placeholder. And I'm gonna vote no because I understand about the school learning day might not be the answer, but I would like to explore more of that as an option, because I do think that would give our community more of a chance to understand. On the Jewish holidays that I was off, I just was happy that those people were Jewish and I got those days off. But I didn't know anything about the holidays. And I know that for my friends who were not of my faith, they didn't know anything about the reasons I had off. Santa doesn't really count. So that is why I'm voting no. But I would like to leave this as something to explore for the next year if we don't have as much sort of the days off. So.
Okay, thanks. Jay?
I'm gonna vote yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Jeff?
No, but I'd like to see us explore this in the future. Maybe take one holiday at a time and really look at it.
Thank you. Mike?
I'm gonna say yes, because I'm on the fence. I just want to side with. I want to go with the side of me that is that can honor a sizable minority of our community.
Thank you. Erin?
Yes.
And I'm going to vote no. So the motion carries 5-3. Marcia, all set? Perfect. Thank you. So, Vonda, you can share that our board has taken action with
Very
the
proud
other
of you.
superintendents.
For the action. Part.
It's very difficult because there's so much that's part of this decision that we make, and so I want to compliment our board in thinking about the students, the parents, the staff. So appreciate the robust discussion that we had and the decision that you made. So we are in the forefront of decision making, and I thank you for that. Now alive.
They have to. Ball's in your court.
See how that all goes.
Actually, it's interesting. One went one way, one went the other. So let's see
Yeah.
what they decide.
Yeah.
And it's your right to decide. It's your community. It's your right.
So, after all of that, Ms. Sherman, I think you're giving the Beecher Road School update tonight.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. I have several updates to share with you. I wanted to start by most recently, we had 22 students who this weekend attended the Connecticut Music Education Arts auditions, and it's very exciting. That's a really large number of our kiddos for both voice and instrumental. And as a side note, I attended the middle school concert this past week, and the instrumental music teacher there mentioned that this was his largest instrumental music group that he has had in many, many years. And as you know, we feed right into that Amity Middle School Bethany campus, and so it was really lovely to see so many of our former Beecher students up on that stage playing and participating in our instrumental music program. Speaking of concerts, ours is coming up this week, and we hope that you are able to join us. Switching gears into the PTO, I started to think about all of the work that the PTO does for us, and I kept adding more and more things to the list and all the ways I need to say thank you to them. So I want to start by saying that for the staff, they actually recently stocked our faculty room. This is something that they have taken on this year, and it is amazing. There's like a mad dash once we find out that they've actually put snacks in the faculty room. Not quite, don't worry, we're not leaving the kids, but teachers get very excited, and we're very, very grateful for it. So many thanks to the PTO for that. They also organized for the first time ever a career ambassador week for us and the students, and it was amazing. We had dancers, and we had physicists and doctors and attorneys, and we had so many wonderful parents come into our classrooms and teach the students about their career and their job, and they all did an amazing job of bringing the work that they do every day down to the level of our students and making it really interesting and engaging. So really great to experience that, and wonderful to have our community in our school. The PTO also recently brought in a whale mobile, and I kept hearing about this whale mobile and not quite understanding what it was, but it was in fact a ginormous whale, blow-up whale that you could walk inside of, and also have an experience outside where you learned all about whales and migration and the different types of predators, and it was really phenomenal, and it really was a gigantic whale in our South Gym. So many thanks to the PTO. It is yet another school field trip that they organize for our multi-age group and our grade 1 students to participate in. A communication survey was recently sent out. This is a follow-up to one that we did last year. It is an area that we are continuing to focus on as a school learning community, and this survey is going to be a dipstick to check in to see how we're doing so far this year and to help us to continue to get better. If you have not taken the survey and you are a parent and you are listening, please do so. It shouldn't take you very, very long, and the deadline is this Friday, so I know it's a busy time, but pause and take a minute to do it for us. There have been a lot of really big projects happening in school. Our 5th grade island projects, which I personally think are just super fun. They are really creative. The kids have been bringing in their projects for the last couple of days. I've previewed a few. I saw an Animal Crossing island. I saw a boogie board island that was tilted up, and I don't know how they did it, but it was really cool. Our 6th graders have been bringing in their cell analogy projects. I've only seen a few of those so far, but I'm excited to see some more. And our kindergarten teachers, actually, a few of our kindergarten teachers recently ended a reading unit with a theme of communities, and they gave their students the opportunity to build buildings that they would find in their communities. So I got to see our little youngest learners building schools and fire stations and police departments, and they were talking all about why these organizations and these buildings and these people are in their communities and how they help us. And the best part is that they were using all sorts of different tools. They were drawing, they were using magnetiles, they were using Legos, they were using blocks, everything at their disposal in their classroom basically to create these structures in their community. They were working independently, they were working in small groups, it was cooperative, it was an amazing blend of play-based and project-based learning and tying in our literacy. So it's been, some really exciting learning happening at Beecher lately. And I'm going to end, I had 2 principals for a day win their Halloween Hoot auction, and they both happened to be in primary grades. One was a 2nd grader and one was a 1st grader. and I just ended my time with one of them today, and we had a grand old time. I really did put them to work. I think they thought it would maybe be a little just fun and play, and we actually, like, we were moving books, and we were scouting out the grounds and checking on the construction, and we had a meeting with Superintendent Tenza, and we had a meeting with Officer Lynch, and like they literally worked very hard. So it was really fun to have them, and again, that came out of the Halloween hoot and organized obviously by the PTO. So lots of good things happening. Any questions?
Lisa, thanks. It's always
course.
nice to hear about the great things the kids are doing, and
Doing
we
some great
appreciate
things. Thank you.
being here, sharing with us. Next is the Beach Road School Infrastructure Building Committee update.
Nothing really to add on this update. Meeting is Thursday, 3:30.
We have a meeting
Yep.
this Thursday, 3:30, via WebEx. Anyone who's interested in logging in.
Couple change orders with the drainage, but minor.
Right.
Yeah, really nothing to add.
Thank you. Any questions about the building committee? Okay. Curriculum committee?
Yeah, so
Mike?
we met on December 5th at 4 p.m. The main topic of discussion was the DARE program, or what are we calling it now? It's the revised DARE program. It was the former DARE program.
The DARE Alternative Program?
The DARE Alternative Program.
We do think it needs a name.
I do think.
We do think it
agree.
needs a name.
I think it needs a name.
Look at the kids
So
on
we got an update on that. So I think you all probably know this already, but we're not doing DARE because Officer Lynch is no longer, in part because Officer Lynch is no longer a police officer. He's retired, and in order for DARE to operate, it needs an active police officer to lead it. And so we since revised that program. It was a collaborative effort between Ms. Buzzard and Mr. Lynch, and it draws on a variety of drug prevention programs. We've learned that the Great Body Shop is one of them. The FBS, SOS course, National Institute on Drug Abuse resources, all these resources were used to organize a drug prevention program. It covers a wide range of topics ranging from drug addiction, types of addiction, withdrawal, but also covers other issues like internet safety, related to the protection of kids against all the harms on the internet. So we got an update on how the course is taught, which is approximately 15 to 30-minute lessons on 1 per 6-day cycle. One of the topics that we discussed was this issue of potential harm of drug prevention programs. So one of the concerns I had raised was that with the original DARE program, we had learned that there was actually harm done from that program. So it wasn't that it was just ineffective, but that program actually taught kids how to be more effective in doing drugs secretly. That was never the program we were implementing here at Beecher, just to be clear. There was a revision of that program, and that was the program we were implementing. But it always stuck in my mind that, there was this original DARE study out there. We know about these potential harms. They're unintended harms. They're things that we should, I think, take seriously with programs like this at Beecher. And so I had suggested that we give more attention to that as a board, that we not only look at the strategies that have been found to be effective at preventing drug use and other behavioral problems, but to also look at those practices that we should avoid. And so that was something that I think we're going to, that the administration said they're going to look into and report back on. I was happy to learn that, so we also got a brief math update. I was happy to learn that much of the math curriculum was being put on the website. Maybe by now it is already, all of it is on the website. That was something that we were encouraging.
The outline.
The outline.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're working on the curriculum this summer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we're working on the curriculum this summer, but what the outline for it currently is on the website to keep families in the community informed. We got a brief STEAM update. The new teacher seems to be working out well. I think there's some budget-related matters that that came up in that meeting, I think, for us to consider. But I think those were, maybe we'll have a little bit more of a discussion during the budget meeting on that. So that's the update.
Any questions? Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Policy, Erin?
We reviewed all the things that are now for under 30-day review. I'm going to tell you, I mean, you can please feel free to look through them. Most of the edits are just updates, taking out really antiquated language or making clarifications. Even when we reviewed the technology policy, which I know has gotten a lot of attention, we really didn't change the core of our policy. We just updated the language again. Blackberries don't exist anymore, things like that. So there's no, substantive changes that I feel like I need to take the time to point out. But it was a good clearing out the cobwebs and making sure our language is in alignment with reality today.
Anyone have any questions on any of those revisions?
So the last time I noticed these were done, 2011, is that right?
Yeah, some of them are really old.
But this gets us through the 9,000 series?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then one
Yeah.
thing is, does CABE have a recommendation on how often these need to be updated? Does anybody know?
How do I politely answer that?
I can say we've heard every 10 years there
That's
should
what I
be
would
a
have
summer
thought.
review.
Yeah.
I don't know that that comes from CABE,
Right.
but I've heard that.
They would advocate for sooner because
yes, of course.
they're looking.
Okay.
That was very good. Little
Makes
body
sense.
language. Did you catch it, Jay?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's why we love
Thank
you. Thank you, Erin. Any other questions? Thanks, Erin. CABE liaison report?
2 weeks ago, Vonda, Lynn, and I attended the board leadership conference. The 2 sessions we attended, we actually attended 3. One, I don't really remember, but one was on AI and all of the benefits of it, and the other was on developing cell phone policies, which doesn't really apply to us. There's sort of interesting information between the two. At times felt like it was contradicting itself since there's so much controversy with both of those, but interesting to hear about it, and I'm sure it'll be infiltrating more and more. So,
And Sarah Beth and I also attended one with board leadership people, just to talk about like what's going on in your district, what's
Right.
going on in your district, and the board leadership that was there were very surprised to hear about Woodbridge's increasing enrollment and need for space, because many of these districts are dealing with closing schools. And, you know, we're talking about studying our space and growing. So they were very interested in that. Anything else, Sarah Beth?
that's it.
Okay, I have just a couple things. I attended the board chair webinar entitled Working Effectively with People Who Have Different Perspectives, and I think it was a good discussion. There was some interesting information and thoughts that they shared. So that webinar will be archived in the CABE library. So it was a 1 hour webinar, and so quick period of time. If you have an hour that you want to just, there's nothing good on Netflix, you can log into the CABE website and go to the archived webinars and watch it. CABE is offering a free webinar on 2025 legislative issues and advocacy on Tuesday, tomorrow, the 17th, from, again, 12 to 1. Those webinars are great because they really keep within that time frame. So if you have lunch time and you can watch, they're wonderful. You just need to register online and they send you the link. We are waiting for a date for our legislative, our area legislative breakfast to be announced. So I'm going to just tell you that please keep your eyes open, and if you see that and are interested in attending, last year Aaron went, Sarah Beth went, Stephen went, I went. Did somebody else go? I think that might have been it. But it's a great opportunity to talk to our area legislators about things that are going to be coming up in terms of legislation. So keep your eye out for those weekly little updates, because I'm really concerned it's going to happen over the holiday break. Our upcoming January regular Board of Education meeting is going to include an update on literacy and math. So I'm asking board members if there's anything that you would like to see specific to those two topics included in the update. If you would let Vonda know, she'll be sure to make sure that's part of the update for the regular January meeting. My monthly community service announcement, facility committees meeting Thursday, January 2nd, 7:30 a.m. Getting right back into the groove with Mr. Hughes. Finance committee will meet on Tuesday, January 14th at 4:30. The Beecher Infrastructure Building Committee, as I mentioned, will be meeting Thursday, December 19th at 3:30 via WebEx, and that committee also has additional meetings scheduled for every first Thursday and third Thursday of every month at 3:30 via WebEx. The board is going to hold a special meeting on Monday, January 6th. This meeting is scheduled for further discussion and action on the proposed 25-26 operating budget. If necessary, an additional special meeting is also scheduled for Tuesday, January 7th. If we vote on the 6th, we won't need to meet on the 7th. If we don't vote on the 6th, we'll meet on the 7th as well. Or if the 6th is a snow day, we will meet on the 7th. We're now on to finance, which I have to be honest with you, I'm so sorry, but I totally left that. I went on to upcoming meeting presentations and totally skipped over finance, which I am so sorry. I apologize for that. But that indeed is on our agenda.
And I'm sure everyone present and who will listen in later is thoroughly disappointed that finance wasn't covered sooner, although I thought you were just clearing the decks. Because we'll go right through this into the budget, so it's not bad. So I will quickly run through the monthly update on the financials, courtesy of Donna, who is on top of this on a daily basis, and then we will transition into the budget discussion. So we are 5 months complete of our fiscal year. Last month we showed an increased shortfall of estimated shortfall of about 71,000. This month, 7,800. Donna, go Donna.
On our way back,
But,
Donna.
Yeah. But what it really speaks to is a point that Donna frequently makes, which is as time goes along, you have better information with which to make your estimates in terms of both planned expenses and unplanned expenses that may have to be accounted for. So this kind of variability is to be expected. That said, lower expense side of the budget, 500 series other purchase services, for example, student transportation, tuition, interns. We're currently running an estimated $56,000 under budget. This is up from a surplus of about $20,000 last month. So we know there's going to be an outplaced tuition that we were not aware of when the current budget was developed, but we think those costs may not be incurred as quickly and therefore not a total as much as we were initially estimating. We also budgeted for 3 interns, but only have 2 on staff currently. So those are among the factors accounting for that, assuming I represented them properly. For the 400 series purchase property services, we're currently forecast to be about $14,000 under budget. The HVAC was off much of the summer due to the roofing project, which gave us substantial savings. We budgeted for the pool this year, not knowing that it would be closed. Balancing that out are a couple of large repairs, including an unbudgeted repair of our sprinkler system. Rest assured, our sprinkler system is functioning per code, so this is not should not be any concern about safety, but will require some maintenance.
It already happened this week.
Oh, it already happened.
And they
Look
didn't
at me.
have to dig as deep as they thought, so maybe it will be less
So next
expensive.
month we may break even?
We're going to be in the green, I think.
All right. We're looking forward.
Well done.
A nice way to start the year in January. We're pretty much running on budget for the 600, 700, and 800 series. On the higher expense side of the ledger, we're in the 100 series salaries, we're looking at an estimated $47,000 deficit, although this is compared to an $83,000 deficit last month. So, of course, as you recalled, we hired an unbudgeted first grade teacher. We need to fill 4 unbudgeted paraeducator positions. Plus, we were finally able to fill that part-time psychologist position. On the positive side, we were including funds for hiring an occupational therapist, and what we ended up doing is contracting for those hours, which are now included in the 300 series, but for less money. During our finance committee meeting, Donna also noted that we may, emphasis on may, be able to move some salary costs to grants as the year goes on. Don't spend it yet, but, you know. 200 series benefits show a $12,000 deficit at this point. This has remained consistent for the last few months and reflects additional benefits for unbudgeted new hires. And then finally, the 300 series purchase professional services forecast a roughly $21,000 deficit, which is an increase from an estimated $4,000 deficit last month, but that is reflecting the addition of the consulting cost for the occupational therapist. That's the report.
Questions? Did you have anything you want to add? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments other than
So
yay?
my only quick question was the grants. I noticed that. So how would they be accounting for that?
Yeah, so we like to operate like a year behind in the grants so that if you do run into a situation like this, you know, we haven't. The title grants, they span 2 years, like so from 7/1/23 to 6/30/25, you have to spend that allotment. The way Woodbridge has been operating is they're always spending it all in the second year of the grant, so that if you have a year where something arises, you know, we could be spending the 24 to 26 allotment. And, you know, whatever, you've just got a place to go if you need to rework things.
And these grants, are they continually renewed or are they?
The titles are.
Okay, so what fraction of the total grants does that represent? No, sorry, just approximately.
Well, now that the ARPs are over, it's probably like 99% of the grants.
Yeah, so
now that the ESSER
so the
stuff
RPA
is done.
out,
Yeah.
they're all out. So, okay, so we're using it as a balancing item in a way at the end of this year.
I mean, we're using them for their intended purposes, but it's it's just kind of a safety net to,
I'm going to retract my question because I was trying to figure out why we weren't accounting for them over the 2-year period. So typically when we get grants in the university setting, we're required to set them 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. If it's a 2-year setting, and they want to see an audit at the end of every 6 months. But I guess the IDA grants, you're given a chance to decide when to use them and apply them. Is that true?
Correct, yeah.
That's perfect. That's excellent. Okay. Because that was the part I wasn't quite getting. Because when I saw the balancing item, I was like, oh.
Yeah, we're
Where
still,
did that come from?
we're still spending the 23 to 25 grants this year.
And then when we're budgeting out next year, I know this is a question for the next part, but do we list those as likely grants, or do we say this is what we've already got?
We have a slide where we say, this is what, here's things that we don't have to pay for in the general fund because we have these grants.
And is that the balance of what's left over of the 2 years, or is that the total grant?
That is the balance but in most cases they're the same number, in case unless we've dipped a little or something.
Okay, and you can only carry them 2 years then?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. And then there's specific requirements with most of these on what they can be applied to.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out how you were moving things into these categories, but I
like
get it.
Title III is English language learners. Title II can only be
So you
spent
can
on teachers.
Set it against salaries in certain areas. So
Yep, and other times it's services or supplies or equipment or.
And do you know? So I know. Okay, I'm going to save this for the next part, but just to give you the heads up. So the grants account for a sizable amount that we're doing. So without the grants, I would argue our budget ask would be significantly higher. Am I right to assume that?
Yeah, maybe $500,000.
Yeah, I believe it's like 2 or 3% higher. So we're doing very, very well when I look at the ask, because you are getting about 3%. Am I right? About 3%, 2.5%.
Let's see, I would say 1% is 180, so it would be 2.5. Yeah.
2.5.
'Cause 180.
Yeah, so we're doing really, really well because we're only asking for a 6 increase, and you're getting almost 2 from grants, which is really, really good, I think.
But we always have been, so Yeah.
So we've been offsetting that. And has that been consistent? Oh no, it can't be consistent because our ask is different every year.
But the grants are fairly consistent. Maybe they're getting a little bit less this year. We don't have the mental health worker grant. It's expiring. And then even our Title I, our titles some of them have
Very
dipped.
stable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on finance? Then we'll move on to, under finance, the 25-26 superintendent's budget proposal for the operating budget.
I'm going to keep my comments very brief. Just that last Monday, we had a first look at the budget where Donna and I went over the presentation in detail, and we responded to a few general questions and asked that you submit some questions. We got some that we will read shortly from one of the board members. We then put the same budget for discussion on the finance agenda the following day on Tuesday, picked at it a little bit more, and so tonight I'm really just going to open the floor for your questions for the board to consider. So just as a brief reminder, there's really nothing new in this budget, despite the fact that the number looks a bit daunting at 6.11. It's resting there, and Donna had showed a visual and updated it that shows you that without the teacher and the 4 pairs that were added earlier this year, which we absolutely need, the percent would rest at a 4.52. And also, as part of that 4.52, we accounted for 75% of a salary of a social worker that we did hire during COVID with grant funds, and we are trying to roll her salary into our budget because that grant has expired. We were able to put about 25% of that salary into the IDEA grant. So, other than those points, contractual obligations and rate increases comprise most of the remainder of this increase. So I understand that budget discussions are stressful, and I appreciate the fact that you are thinking carefully and posing thoughtful questions that will shape your decision. And, I just know that our work together over these next few weeks is going to result in a budget that is going to help advance learning for our children. So I'll start with reading. You're welcome. the questions that we received and our responses.
I can give the answer, or you want to give
That would be
the
great.
answer? Okay.
So the first question had to do with utilities. I know we are locked into pricing for some of our utilities. If rates have gone down, would it make sense to try and get out of some of our current contract and into something with a better rate? Even if there was a cancellation fee, perhaps would there be a higher savings overall? Or could we look into an extension of a contract to get a better rate renegotiated?
Okay, so we contract with a company called Titan Energy as our energy consultant, together with the town, and they represent about 50% of all the municipalities in Connecticut, so it's a huge amount of buying power. They vet and bid out our energy needs to the 10, top energy sellers or providers. They then monitor our contracts, and we decide with their recommendations if we're going to, keep our same rate, or if rates have gone down, we can do what they call blend and extend. If you're willing to go out a few more years, you get a lower rate. We did decrease our rate this year by doing that, and it looks like in January we will be able to do that again, decrease our rate and go out further. So that's how we handle our energy. And I really do think being a part of a group that large is getting us the best prices that we can.
Next question, Comcast and Frontier.
Can I quickly ask, is it 3 years that they want us to go out every time you blend and extend?
I don't think we have to go out that far.
Okay. Because I thought you said 2027, right?
Initially, the contract, I think, was for like 5 years, but then each year we go down. I think we just have to go out another year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Comcast and Frontier are now in Woodbridge, wondering if they might be offering any incentives to switch to them for phone and internet services. So we obtain our internet through CEN with the state of Connecticut, and it is the absolute lowest price for all schools, all public schools.
Universities too.
Yep. E-rate provides some subsidies to lower that even more. And we did go away from Frontier to the New Era system this year, which is saving us roughly $5,000 to $8,000 a year. So we feel like we have made some nice savings.
We didn't really reflect those savings in the budget because there is some scuttlebutt that E-rate is going to reduce what you can use it on, so we're just kind of holding
on that number,
that status quo number, just in case we don't get the discounts that we have been able to enjoy.
Next question was a good one. Do we have a schedule of when we replace classroom furniture, or is it on an as-need basis? So I've been in several districts, and every district, has had this beautiful replacement of furniture schedule, and it's always the first place that's cut. I'm sad to say that it is very true across the state of Connecticut. So we actually do not currently follow a replacement schedule. We do work with an as-need basis, and as you saw last year, if there's any surplus funds, we try to tackle it that way. We are doing a grade level a year of rugs, so that the classroom rugs are replaced every 6 years, because they do tend to hold a lot of germs. So we can certainly talk about that more in facilities and finance, but again, replacement schedules for classroom furniture are often the first place cut. So there was the answer to that question. I know it's a small number, but what can we do about the credit card fees for extended day? Can we move to only checks or Venmo? Can we put the fee on the parents? I know if you're paying for cafeteria costs, the credit card fees are billed to the parent. So E-Day is not in this budget, so we actually wouldn't really discuss that here. It's something that we can further discuss in the finance committee. It is a self-sustaining program, but it's not part of our budget.
Yeah,
It
all of
sustains
its
itself.
costs are borne by the people who use E-Day.
And the last one is, what is a public benefit charge? This was fascinatingly depressing to me.
Yeah. So the public benefit charge is a fee that I think residents as well as businesses are being charged. It's mandated by state and federal government. It goes to cover things like financial assistance, energy efficiency programs, purchasing of renewable and carbon-free electricity, funding for solar and electric vehicle incentives. My professional organization, CASBO, a lot of
panic going around at how much higher people's bills are, and people are, groups, some cities or municipalities are trying to talk to their representatives about it. Because we do a lot with solar, ours are not as nearly as bad as what a lot of people are seeing. A lot of people are seeing maybe as much as 25% increase. You know, I think we're going to see 10 maybe. So it's not a great thing, but we're doing better than others. I've heard that it's going to end in April, but it's another person, whatever. I'm getting more and more information about this, all the time from my professional organizations. So it's kind of I should say, I didn't budget for this fee, but we budgeted our utilities to be similar to this year. So if we're paying it this year, we will be able to afford it next year should we have to. So those were the questions we received. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say, or if you want to just open it to.
Well, I want to thank you for doing the work to answer those questions. I think that information was really very helpful. And thank you to the board member who presented them so that you could do some research and preparation and giving us those great answers. So thank you for that. We are scheduled to meet, as I mentioned before, on January 6th. If any board member has any questions that you want answered, if it's a simple answer, maybe you can give it tonight. If otherwise, we'll write those questions down. And as Donna and Vonda did with the questions that were presented to the board by a board member, you can have those answers ready for us for January 6th. So any questions that you would like to have either researched, or maybe they have the answer at the tip of their tongue.
Good question. When do insurance policies get reviewed? Like if we're going to change?
So Connecticut will probably give us our proposed rate increase in another two months.
Okay.
They will want to see, like, all the way through, I think, our January and February claims when they will. And, I mean, again, it changes every month, but if the claims stay in the same percentage that we're doing now, I think we'll do better than I have in the budget. So we just want everybody in the Board of Ed in the town to stay healthy.
Stay healthy.
Don't go to the doctor if you don't want to. I'm kidding.
Yeah, everyone stay healthy.
What other
But
questions?
we do work with the town negotiating.
That's right.
That.
We're one group.
One group with the town. It's not as though someone's coming to us and negotiating separately with the Board of Education.
Yeah, we're better off doing it as a group. The bigger the group, the better the pool, the better the rates, lower the increases.
So Public Works, the town hall employees, that we're all one big group.
Lynn, I did have one very quick comment. I wanted to thank you. This is a really, it's worked very hard to try and keep this at a reasonable level. I mean, there's only 4 items I see that have changed. I mean, I know there's a lot of items. You've got all of the 1 to 900. But the salaries, I've seen the FTE go up 4.1, and that's the explanation for the 600,000 increase. I see the medical insurance. You've mentioned that. I don't think there's anything you can do there. CMAs and FICA, they're what they are.
Right.
And transportation, that was the one that I think you mentioned, and that was set, so we knew that was coming. And then there's that oddball that I always call it, the oddball, the out of town tuition.
Out of district.
Out of district tuition. So I think you've done an amazing job to try and keep it all down to an increase. $1 million may sound a lot, but that 6% with all those changes that are in essence forced upon you. It's very difficult to work around those, but you've done very, very well, I think, in coming up with that. I think it's a reasonable number, at least with respect to all the fixed items. 90% plus is fixed. There's nothing you can change. So, and the one I did have, and I think Sarah Beth, you raised this about the insurance. I mean, there's some little things that we could probably tweak or look at going forward.
Right.
And insurance is one of those legal services. Whether we can pull these services with the town somehow, maybe, to try and get a lower rate as a town, might be something we might want to look at. I think that's, but I think you've done a very good job.
I mean, Seamers is another rate that we don't know for sure yet. It's just my
Until the
estimate.
end of the year.
You know, obviously,
And I think you
tried
always
to-
want to be conservative on that.
Yeah,
one,
exactly.
'cause
You don't want to
volatility
have
is
the
so
other
high.
problem, right?
Volatility is so high with Seamers. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. So I just wanted to thank you for, Donna and Vonda, for adding that little blue section
Oh, yeah.
on them. And so in thinking about that, I have just like one more suggestion before we go to the town. If we could show the 2025 increase, that this year's increase is 3.51 here. If next to that, we could put another bar and put actual and show that attached to that. Do you know what I mean?
With the 5 positions added?
Yeah, what we're really gonna pay out, what the increase would have been. I think that will show almost like
Even.
even.
Yeah, it would.
And that, I think that in presenting that to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, they'll really be able to, and to the community, they'll really be able to see, we're not changing what
Right.
we're currently living with.
Right, and in Finance Committee, it was suggested, and we will update the presentation, to show, hey, here's the cost savings that are built into this budget, so that it wasn't an 8% or a 9%.
Right.
We did
Right.
some, economizing to make it.
Thinking toward the end of January when we present this, I mean, we all know that, we all see it is sitting at this table, but in presenting it to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen and the community, I think that that level bar graph will,
This
will really
increase is 100% salaries and benefits, transportation, and outplaced tuition.
Right.
We're not gonna cut some desks and fix this, this increase.
Lynn,
That's where it is.
with that, I think it would be helpful on the written description to add that it was for paraeducators due to increased special ed needs. Like, I think we have to actually spell that out for the town, because otherwise you could be like, they have more paras. People don't understand what that means, and they don't understand that we're legally obligated for those 4 paras. So I think we actually need to put in, like, for special ed, legally obligated, and then for the one teacher, I think we should say due to increased enrollment in this grade. So that it's very clear that, like, these weren't just random decisions that were made. There was real factual reasons we had to do that.
And couldn't we, our budget that we presented last year was on what we knew.
Right.
That changed over the summer.
Exactly.
It was-
But I think we need to spell that out a little bit more in the description. Otherwise, you could be like, okay, so you got a teacher, get rid of a teacher. You got 4 paras. Why do they have all these people in the school, right? Like, people don't understand what paras actually do and why the legal obligation that we have to meet the needs of our kids.
Good.
And I will make one more suggestion.
We appreciate these.
Which I hadn't thought about before, but it was struck in the, on page 5, the budget increases historical. I mean, 2021, we had a flat budget. It was 0%. There was no change. So I think it would be interesting perhaps to include on the same page below, looking at the change from 2020 to 2027 in actual percent change and inflation adjusted percent change. Because thinking about inflation rates during that period, if you adjust for inflation, it will have in fact been a very modest increase in the budget over that 7-year period.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Going
my
to
only
that.
thought is just like to be careful with a district our size, you know, something like outplaced tuition or whatever, you don't want to get into anything that's in an identifiable area, and when you see something like that, that's where I immediately thinks, oh, something rolled off, you know, the budget that was very expensive or something, so. Yep.
See the way I see it, and I think inflation is an important point. This past year, inflation, according to Federal Reserve, has run at 3.1%, depending on what we're looking at. I know our school supplies, that falls into one category that's been much higher. And so general supplies have been a little higher. Maintenance has gone up even higher than inflation. So you've got these areas that we have to contend with. And to set what you have and still maintain, like Erin said, the mandated legal requirements on top of what we had last year. I mean, I think you've really hit the same number, and I think, Lynn, your idea of putting the parallel is important to show that. But I did sorry I wasn't here last week, I did like the slide that you presented with all the achievements, that these were...
It's for you.
I thought
That's for you.
That's
I even
always
used
a
your
good
word,
start.
return on investment.
That was your gift.
That was for you.
That was always a
Thank you for
starter
noticing
for
it.
me. If I'm sitting there,
Return
what
on
have you done
investment.
with the money?
Mhm.
Because I think that's what the community wants to see, how you've used that money and the investment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other helpful suggestions or questions or comments? All right, so I'm going to say the same thing I said at our last meeting, which is, you know, we all ruminate over these things, not just for the public, not just at the board meetings, but in between the board meetings, and we think about them. So if board members have any questions that like pop up in their brain between now and the beginning of January, if you could email them to Vonda and copy Donna, then they'll be prepared on January 6th to answer those questions, and perhaps barring a snow day, we'll be able to take action on the budget on that if all of our questions are answered. So
You can always call too, right?
Yeah.
You can email,
Right,
you can call.
right. Yeah. So thank you to all of the administrators and department heads who worked on creating this budget. It's a lot of work that goes into this, and it's all done in a compressed period of time at the beginning of school when it's the most active and demanding. So thanks to all
And
of
you
you.
have all those days off. It must be
And-
so.
and
right. I just take it full circle.
And we're gonna give them more days off. They'll never get the budget done.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. Moving on to public comment. Our second public comment. I don't see anyone here to make public comment. There is no executive session this evening. So at 9:17, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Stephen? Motion to adjourn at 9:17. Mike Strambler's going to second that. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you all, and I wish you all a very happy new year, because we will not see you between now and the first of 2025.